if not physically, we must devote our lives. Mind you, there are days that I've come to my office after an announcement of a case and closed my door and cried. There have been those days, and there are likely to be more. There are moments when I'm deeply, deeply sad. And there are moments when, yes, even I feel desperation. We all do. But you have to own it. You have to accept it. You have to shed the tears. And then you have to wipe them and get up and fight some more.
All right, guys. So what you just saw there was a very embarrassing clip for this country, because we have Supreme Court justices that admit that they boohoo, whine, and cry. They break down in tears every night because they can't get their way on their job, right? I mean, this is what she's saying. She's saying, well, I cry because the conservative Supreme Court issues rulings that I disagree with. AKA, I can't get my way, so therefore I'm going to cry about it. These are the type of people that are sitting on our Supreme Court. These are the type of people that are in our government. People who can't control their emotions, okay? And we've talked about this a lot over the past week or so. Our so-called leaders in the government being overly emotional when it comes to their job, and it leading to very embarrassing moments for this country. And it is a reason why our country is always in a state of dysfunction and chaos, because the people that are ruling over us are dysfunctional and chaotic, right? I think that is what we've learned over the past week, okay? But what you have here are liberals that want to overthrow the Supreme Court, one of the last major government institutions that we have that have an ounce of integrity, that isn't completely chaotic and dysfunctional. And again, because of that, that's why Democrats want to destroy it, okay? They want to undermine the Supreme Court. This is what they're actively trying to do. And they're so desperate to do so that they are quite literally making up scandals, right? Like the latest thing that they've made up here is this flag hoax against Samuel Alito, okay, where they are basically saying that an upside down American flag, which traditionally has been used as a symbol of distress, they're trying to say that Samuel Alito was flying that in support of January 6th, even though his neighbors saw him flying the flag on January 17th, which was about 2 weeks after January 6th. But they're trying to say that the Supreme Court justice is in support of the insurrection because of an upside down flag. Now, this flag has been used by liberals, people on the left. Like, for example, the Roe v. Wade rioters used that flag in response to their dissatisfaction with the Supreme Court in their ruling. But when they were doing it, the mainstream liberal media didn't say that they were supporting January 6th, right? Then they tried to say, well, Samuel Alito has sold Bud Light stock, right? They try to make that some type of major controversy. And it's weird to me because none of these people are concerned about Nancy Pelosi's insider trading, but Samuel Alito allegedly makes a trade based off of the fact that Bud Light was being boycotted for making stupid business decisions. This is not insider information. This is publicly available information. He made a trade when he sold a stock, and somehow, some way, this is a big scandal, right? This is how desperate these people are. And then they have another flag scandal involving Samuel Alito, okay, where he has another house, and at that house, there was an appeal to heaven flag being flown. Now, this flag goes back to the American Revolution, okay? It has connections to George Washington and his staff, but yet somehow they've made this a January 6th flag, right? An insurrection flag. And it's hilarious because just like the upside down American flag, the appeal to heaven flag was actually flown by liberals, right? During the BLM protest. So again, when it was flown by liberals during the BLM protest, it wasn't in support of, I don't know what it would have been in support of at that point because January 6th didn't happen yet, but I'm just saying it wasn't a bad flag, right? It wasn't a bad flag. So again, it's just hilarious, okay? You see the desperation from these people, and they're trying to use these fake non-stories as reasons for quite literally overthrowing the Supreme Court. And Jasmine Crockett here is going to explain how Democrats are planning to overthrow the Supreme Court in response to these fake scandals that they keep making up against justices like Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Joining me now, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. She's a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congresswoman Crockett, welcome back to the Saturday Show. You signed the letter calling for Justice Alito to recuse himself after news broke of the first flag.
Yeah.
Your reaction now that there's been a second flag?
Listen, we're not going to play with this. We know who Alito is. He's not trying to hide who he is. I mean, I know he tried to hide behind his wife during the first incident, but he has nothing to say about this second incident. You know, I had my little drama that happened in oversight. Unfortunately, what wasn't covered was that the court reform task force was rolled out the exact same week. And in that task force, we've got three major things that we're looking at. We're looking at, number one,
I want you guys to notice how in this explanation, they don't say that this flag was also associated with the BLM protests, right? Again, this is how the mainstream liberal media runs propaganda. Through omission, okay, more so than anything. The Justice Beach House displayed an appeal to having a flag, a symbol carried on January 6th and associated with a push for a more Christian-minded government. Okay, again, my question is, why didn't the mainstream liberal media also include that this flag was associated with the BLM movement? Because, again, they're trying to tell people that, hey, this is an insurrectionist symbol, right? That's what they're trying to connect it with. And the reason why they're doing that is because he's a conservative justice. This is like, again, the sleight of hand that the media does in order to brainwash people.
That we're looking at. We're looking at, number one, term limits, no more than 18 years. We're also looking at expanding the court because we know right now that we literally cannot trust these folk. And the last thing that we're looking at is making sure that there's some actual ethics reform. So we have three bills that we're pushing forward with. We're trying to educate the rest of our colleagues on it, and we're trying to hopefully get some movement in the House. And then, you know, we just pray about the Senate.
Yeah, okay, so this clown, right, basically is calling for term limits for Supreme Court justices, but not term limits for congresswomen like herself, right? Again, it's amazing how that works. You want to put term limits on the Supreme Court because you don't like their political opinions, but yet you haven't called for term limits for yourself, right? You don't want to hold yourself accountable. Ain't it funny how that works? Because I've looked up Jasmine Crockett's positions. She's a progressive, right? Some of her positions are very vague on her website, but, you know, from what I could make of her position, she's a progressive. However, I haven't seen anything about her positions on term limits. How many times has this woman come out here and advocated for term limits for herself? That's the question. How many times has she done? Because you can't demand term limits for the Supreme Court, but yet no term limits for members of Congress? In my opinion, I think term limits are actually much more important for Congress members than for Supreme Court justices. Well, why do I say that? Well, the reason why I say that is because the current incentive in Congress is to have people like her come into Congress, cause chaos, raise money, and to continue to get reelected pretending that she's solving problems when she's really not, right? And I'm not saying it's just her. There's also people on the left and the right that do this. And the fact is that the way our current Congress is set up is that they're not incentivized to solve problems. They're incentivized to kick problems down the road and to never solve problems, because solving problems means that they can't point at the other party and blame them for why they're not doing what their people, their voters want them to do. This is what Democrats and Republicans do. They just kick the ball down the road. And again, they're incentivized to do that because it allows them to continue to get reelected. They get paid. They insider trade and get rich. They write books, sell books, get paid off the government dime, retire 20, 30 years and haven't done anything. Don't do anything to show for it, right? This is what they do. And this is why they need term limits. So before you try to put term limits on another branch of government, you need to put term limits on yourself. because term limits on Congress would actually, again, make sure individuals like this person right here, they don't stay in Congress forever, right? Because that's certainly the last thing that we need, okay? Certainly the last thing we need. What she also said is that, well, we want to expand the Supreme Court. What does that mean? Well, we don't like the current numbers on the Supreme Court. We don't like the fact that we can't get our way. We don't like their ruling, so therefore we're going to overthrow it. Again, these are the same people that want to talk about democracy. Again, as soon as these people don't get their way, they hate democracy. Can't stand it. They want to overthrow it. This is what they're calling to do. They actually tried to do it on multiple occasions when it comes to the Supreme Court. You guys remember when Brett Kavanaugh got appointed doing his hearings? These people staged an insurrection at the Supreme Court. They're out there trying to break into the Supreme Court because they didn't like Brett Kavanaugh being appointed. Again, it's insanity. And we can't forget the attempted assassination, that too, a result of Democrat radicalization of their base after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Again, my point is that this is another reason why you have to vote against these people, right? Democrats come out here all the time and talk about, well, it ain't just about Biden, right? If you don't like Biden, then that's okay. You need to vote because of the Supreme Court. You need to vote because of this. You need to vote because of that. This is why I tell any conservative that is skeptical of voting for Trump because of, I don't know, they don't like his attitude or something, okay? Hey, if you're another Trumper, hey, you should vote for Trump because this is what Democrats want to do to the Supreme Court, right? So you need a Republican president to make sure these things don't happen. And see, this is the Democrats and their version of Project 2025, right? Because they fearmonger about what conservatives are going to do when Trump takes office with Project 2025 in regards to taking a sledgehammer to the deep state and the federal bureaucracy. They're scared to death of that, right? This is their version of that when it comes to the Supreme Court. They want to take a sledgehammer to the Supreme Court. They want to destroy it because they know that through actual democracy, they're never going to be able to get what they want, which are a majority of liberals on the court. They're not going to be able to do it, and especially if Trump wins. Because if Trump wins, it is likely that Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas will step down and Trump will appoint 2 young conservative judges to take their place. And then the Supreme Court is basically going to be conservative for a long time, right? At least for the next 20, 30, 40 years, which is their worst nightmare. That is the Democrats' worst nightmare. This is why they're panicking. This is why they're panicking. This is why, again, they're trying to straight up just destroy the Supreme Court.
Okay, so this gets to something that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said this week. He said if the Supreme Court doesn't, quote, get its act under control, Congress should impose an ethics code. But is that going to take a new Congress and a new Congress with a Democratic majority to get those 3 bills you're talking about through?
Absolutely. I just don't think that we have the courage on the other side. Oddly enough, if we still had one of our Freedom Caucus members, Ken Buck, he may have actually joined in because he is a former prosecutor. So one of the issues that he had with dealing with the folk in the House is that he did not feel like there was a legal pathway to impeachment in the first place. And he felt as if his colleagues were diminishing the institution by playing games with trying to impeach the president by going out and impeaching Secretary Mayorkas and things like that. And so he, in my opinion, has a little bit more respect for the law. The rest of them, there may be some that respect the law, but they don't have the guts to stand up and do what's right.
Do you think Justice Alito, I've heard some people say that Justice Alito should be impeached. Would that go too far?
No, I don't think it would.
You don't think that would open?
Wow. Impeach him for what? Flying a flag, guys. This is what Democrats are talking about. Out of one side of their mouth, they're saying, well, it's an abuse of power to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas for not doing his job as the secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Like, his literal job is to secure the border, and he's not doing it. Oh, it's ridiculous for Republicans to do that. They're abusing the system, according to this woman, right? But you're not abusing the system for trying to impeach a Supreme Court justice because he flew a flag that you didn't like? Again, he didn't fly a Trump flag, right? That's not what he did. He didn't fly any flag that, like, overtly is a conservative symbol or shows any type of political partisanship at all. Again, we saw the appeal to heaven flag. That's been flown by people on both sides of the aisle. The upside down U.S. flag has been flown by people on both sides of the aisle. There's nothing about what he's done that is even remotely suggestive of political partisanship. But that doesn't matter to them. They're going to use anything to get rid of this guy, right? Again, another reason to vote against Democrats. She's calling to impeach a Supreme Court justice for flying a flag, guys. That's where we're at, right? That's where we're at.
Open a Pandora's box.
The box is already open, Jonathan. They just don't have control of the Senate as well as control of the White House. Although the impeachment is just the Senate. But listen, I don't think that we'll have the filibuster if the Republicans get a hold of the Senate again. You know, Democrats hide behind so many traditions, not laws, but traditions, even when we start talking about appointments to the courts. I mean, it's amazing that the president has been able to do what he's done. But guess what? We've got a ton of vacancies in the state of Texas, and we can't get them because of blue slips. Blue slips are a tradition. They are not law. And basically what we see in the South, where a lot of these terrible cases are coming from, is Republican senators say, no, you can't have any appointments in our state. We're going to hold on until a Republican is in. And then they decide to forum shop and send all their crazy cases to the crazy judges in the South and then take it up through the Fifth Circuit. And then we know what happens when it gets to the Supreme Court.
Well, right. And that gets to what I was going to ask you, because it's not just the...
So Republicans will just outsmart you, right? This is what she upset about, okay? We're upset that the Republicans are running circles around us when it comes to the courts, right? That's one thing I can't say about the Republicans, right? Again, for as much as I rag on the Republicans, okay, and they deserve it, okay, especially for not doing anything about the border, what I can say is that they have been very effective when it comes to orchestrating and molding the federal court systems. They have been amazing at that. They have ran circles around Democrats, and it has become very useful, right, for pushing back against the Democrats and their agenda, right?
High Court, the Supreme Court that we're talking about folks needing to worry about those federal appointments. And you're alluding to this, but in your home state of Texas, it was a Trump-appointed federal judge who helped send abortion back to the Supreme Court in the mifepristone case.
Yeah, with no legal basis. I don't know how this guy made it to the court. He doesn't sound like he's that intelligent, or he pretended not to be intelligent. I'm not really sure. But the base is, I mean, we're talking about...
Again, what's so hilarious about this is that if you were to say that, hey, Jasmine Crockett doesn't sound that intelligent, she says racist, right? She automatically said, well, you're saying it because I'm a black woman. You question my qualifications because I'm a black woman. But she can freely do that to anybody else, okay? And if anybody else accused her of being racist, oh, you're racist for saying that, right? Then she would be like, well, what are you talking about? That's a really stupid accusation, right? Again, you understand how this works. She's free to criticize anybody else's qualifications and their intelligence. But if you criticize hers, though, then you're racist.
A case where there was no standing. And for those at home that don't understand, standing is like first grade for lawyers, right? Like, it's like, this is the first thing you learn. You somehow have to be harmed before you can go holler at the court, right? And so we're talking about people that literally have nothing to do with mifepristone. We're like, you know what? I feel this. And so I'm going to bring this case. It should have been shut down immediately, but it did not end up happening.
I love that. If you are not harmed by the case, you cannot holler at the court.
All right. That's enough of sweet cheeks and soul sister Congresswoman number one. So, yeah, you guys heard that, right? Like, these people are deranged. They're upset with the Supreme Court. They're upset with the federal courts because, again, these conservative judges are in the way of their agenda, right? They're shutting down the fascism and a lot of the nonsense coming from the Democrat Party. And, again, instead of, going along with democracy, okay, winning some elections consecutively in order to, reshape the courts, doing hard work. No, they want to just overthrow the courts, right? They want to enact more fascism. They want to amend the Constitution, overthrow the Constitution, really, because that's what they're doing with the attack on the Supreme Court. And this is the standard mode of operations for Democrats when they can't get their way, right? I just find it hilarious how they're the ones that boohoo, whine, and cry about fascism and authoritarianism and insurrection is when quite literally that is what they are. This is what they do. That is their mode of operation. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.